1975. Oak Park, Illinois. 9:45 p.m. A quiet suburban kitchen. A pan still warm on the stove. Television murmuring in the next room. Sam Giancana stands alone. Once the most powerful mob boss in Chicago. Once a man who moved money through Las Vegas and whispered into Washington. Now back from exile, waiting to testify. There is a knock. Not forced, not violent. He knows the rhythm. Moments later, gunshots shatter the quiet. 1, 2, 3. 7 rounds total. He collapses near the kitchen floor, blood spreading across tile that was meant to be private. Police call it an organized hit. Reporters call it mob justice. But the execution was not just punishment for past crimes. It happened days before he was scheduled to appear before a Senate committee investigating CIA plots and foreign assassinations. Giancana was ready to speak. About Cuba, about the outfit, about alliances that were never meant to be public. The kitchen was not a crime scene. It was a containment strategy. And someone decided silence was safer than testimony. Sam Giancana was not born into power. He earned it in blood. Born in Chicago in 1908 to Sicilian immigrants, Salvatore Giancana grew up in the shadow of Prohibition. Street gangs were his education. Violence was currency. By his 20s, he was working as a getaway driver for Al Capone's organization, trusted because he was precise, disciplined, and silent. He learned early that survival inside the outfit required 2 faces. Publicly, he cultivated charm, tailored suits, celebrity friendships, nightclubs, rumors of relationships with singers and actresses. He allowed the press to treat him like a colorful relic of an earlier era. Privately, he ruled through intimidation. By the late 1950s, after the imprisonment of former leaders and the quiet guidance of Tony Accardo, Giancana emerged as the street boss of the Chicago outfit. He oversaw rackets stretching from bookmaking and loan sharking to labor infiltration and extortion. But his real leverage came from Las Vegas. Casinos skimmed cash before profits were reported. Envelopes left counting rooms. Couriers moved money east. Chicago took its share. Giancana understood something critical. Political influence mattered as much as muscle. He cultivated back-channel relationships. Federal investigations brushed close, but rarely landed. He was not just a mobster. He was a broker between crime, business, and whispers of government operations. And that is what made him dangerous. By the early 1960s, Sam Giancana was no longer a street operator. He was an executive. The Chicago outfit did not function like the 5 families of New York. It was leaner, less ceremonial. Power flowed upward quietly, with Tony Accardo maintaining ultimate authority while Giancana handled day-to-day command as front boss. This structure protected the hierarchy. If heat came, it stopped at Giancana. Under his control, the outfit expanded aggressively into Las Vegas. The skim was the lifeline, millions removed from casino counting rooms before official records. The Stardust, the Desert Inn, the Riviera, cash diverted into hidden streams that fed Chicago's machine. The chain of command was simple: casino managers loyal to the outfit, trusted overseers in counting rooms, couriers flying cash to the Midwest, capos reporting upward, Giancana approving distributions. Every layer was insulated, every layer expendable. Nationally, he held influence within the Mafia Commission. He navigated alliances with New York bosses while maintaining Chicago's independence. He was respected but not loved, powerful but watched. Giancana ruled through unpredictability. Loyalty was rewarded, disobedience corrected swiftly. But success created exposure. The more money moved through Las Vegas, the more federal attention intensified. Wiretaps multiplied. Senate investigators began asking different questions. Questions not just about gambling, but about foreign operations. Giancana had risen to the top of a criminal empire built on secrecy. Now secrecy was collapsing, and power, once centralized, was beginning to fracture. By 1970, Giancana's position was fragile. Years of authority had created enemies within his own outfit. Younger enforcers and ambitious capos saw opportunity. Accardo had quietly stepped back, leaving Giancana exposed. He was still powerful, but no longer untouchable. His exile to Mexico had been meant as a protective maneuver. Federal scrutiny was intensifying. The IRS, FBI, and the newly empowered Senate committees were closing in on Las Vegas skimming and national organized crime networks. Giancana's visibility made him a liability. Returning to the United States, he walked into a storm. Subpoenas awaited him. The Senate was preparing hearings on CIA Mafia collaborations. The assassination plots against Fidel Castro had been partially routed through Chicago. Giancana, once a silent participant, was now a potential witness. Inside the outfit, whispers circulated. Could the boss be trusted? Could he be allowed to testify? Every move he made was observed. Friends became cautious. Associates distanced themselves. A single error, a call made from a known safe house, a ledger seen by the wrong person, would be enough. The calculation was brutal but simple. A man who had knowledge of sensitive operations was more dangerous alive than dead. This was no longer about loyalty. It was about survival. The turning point was clear. Giancana's return was a trigger. Political exposure and internal distrust intersected, setting the stage for what would come next. By 1974, the stakes around Giancana had shifted from organized crime to national politics. The Church Committee in the Senate had begun investigating CIA activities, including plots to assassinate Fidel Castro. Connections between the agency and the Chicago outfit surfaced, revealing that mob figures had been used to circumvent direct government involvement. Giancana's name appeared repeatedly in documents, his influence in Las Vegas skim operations intertwined with covert foreign missions. This was dangerous territory. Giancana knew secrets that could topple careers in Washington, and the outfit recognized the risk. While the public still saw him as a larger-than-life mob boss, privately, politicians and organized crime leaders feared what would happen if he spoke. Simultaneously, Las Vegas casinos were under intense scrutiny. Regulators questioned irregularities, auditors asked uncomfortable questions, and the FBI had begun detailed financial investigations. The casino executives, many of whom were complicit in the skimming schemes, issued public denials to preserve legitimacy. Behind closed doors, panic spread. Giancana's return to Chicago coincided with subpoenas from the Senate. He had the power to testify, but at a cost. Revealing anything would expose allies and enemies alike. Keeping silent, however, would put him in direct conflict with factions that preferred his permanent disappearance. The political escalation transformed a criminal problem into a national crisis. Every move now carried consequences beyond the outfit: law enforcement, federal politics, and international relations. In the eyes of the Chicago outfit, Giancana had become untouchable only in legend, but dangerously exposed in reality. In the months leading up to his death, Giancana's world narrowed. Allies once loyal began stepping back. Capos who had deferred to him now whispered in private meetings, plotting contingencies for his possible testimony. Couriers and enforcers were reassigned. Routes for cash were altered without his knowledge. Trust had eroded quietly, invisibly. Giancana began noticing the subtle shifts. Phone calls were screened, messages delayed. Friends declined invitations. Every conversation was measured, every gesture analyzed. The psychological pressure was relentless. A man who had ruled through fear now felt it aimed directly at him. He was increasingly alone. Meanwhile, powerful figures both inside and outside the outfit were calculating the risks. If Giancana survived and testified, decades of corruption could unravel. His knowledge of Las Vegas skim, CIA collaborations, and political contacts made him a liability. The decision was made. Silence would be permanent. Those tasked with the execution were chosen carefully. The hit needed to be professional, precise, and deniable. It had to look like a crime of opportunity, not a sanctioned murder. Even the boss of the Chicago outfit, the shadow behind the throne, gave tacit approval. Internal politics demanded it. Outside the public eye, survival trumped loyalty. Giancana's isolation was complete. The betrayal was structural, not personal, a silent decision by those in power to protect the organization over one of its most famous leaders. The stage was set. The end was inevitable. June 19, 1975, arrived quietly. Giancana was at his Oak Park home, a modest kitchen in a suburban street. Nothing in the day suggested what was coming. No warnings, no chatter, just routine. The killers arrived with precision. Not amateurs, not improvisers. Professionals who understood both the stakes and the optics. The plan was simple. Eliminate the target, send a message, leave no trace linking the outfit directly. He answered the knock, believing it to be a visitor, perhaps a neighbor, perhaps someone delivering routine news. Within seconds, shots rang out. 7 rounds fired in rapid succession. Giancana collapsed beside the kitchen sink, blood staining the tiles he had once walked across unafraid. It was over in moments, but the implications were monumental. The execution was staged as a burglary. Cash and valuables untouched, no fingerprints, no apparent motive beyond a random attack. To the outside world, it was a violent crime in an ordinary home. To the outfit, it was a carefully calculated removal. The message was clear. Knowledge is dangerous. Loyalty has limits. Even a boss is disposable when survival demands it. By dawn, investigators arrived, puzzled by the precision of the hit. Newspapers speculated, officials probed, but no convictions followed. The real motive remained hidden behind layers of fear and authority. The execution of Sam Giancana demonstrated the cruel calculus of organized crime. Power is temporary, and silence absolute. The aftermath of Giancana's murder rippled quietly but powerfully. Official investigations produced little. Police interviews, forensic work, and federal inquiries led nowhere. No witnesses came forward, no arrests were made. The Chicago outfit remained intact, consolidating authority even as the public imagined chaos. Within the Mafia, the message was unmistakable. No one, not even a boss, was untouchable. Internal hierarchies shifted subtly. Capos who had been cautious now advanced, filling voids of influence. Couriers and enforcers realigned, their loyalty recalibrated. Fear replaced certainty as the primary currency of survival. Outside the outfit, political fallout simmered. The church committee and Senate investigators noted Giancana's absence. Files hinted at connections to CIA operations and foreign assassination plots, but without his testimony, evidence was incomplete. The delicate web of crime and politics remained obscured, the story only partially told. Las Vegas skimming operations continued, but scrutiny intensified. Casino executives, fearful of exposure, implemented tighter controls and deeper denials. Publicly, the system appeared stable. Privately, every player understood that one wrong move could be fatal. Even decades later, Giancana's death is cited as a chilling lesson in organized crime. The higher you climb, the sharper the risk. Power is visible, but control is often invisible. Reputation can protect only so far. The Chicago outfit survived, but the execution ensured its lessons were embedded in blood, silence, and fear. Sam Giancana's death was more than an elimination of a man. It was a demonstration of the unforgiving logic of organized crime. Even the most powerful figures, those who shaped cities, influenced politics, and manipulated governments, were ultimately expendable. Knowledge, loyalty, and ambition were secondary to the survival of the system. The rules were unspoken but absolute. Speak, and you die. Hesitate, and you die. Exist, and you are a threat. His murder reminds us that the machinery of power is indifferent to individual brilliance. Giancana's life was a ledger of influence, risk, and calculated brutality. His death was the final entry. And yet, there is a haunting symmetry in his story. He walked the same streets as countless others who rose and fell, believing in their control over fate. The Chicago sky that night remained unchanged, indifferent. The suburban kitchen, once mundane, became the final stage for the lesson. Silence is survival, visibility is vulnerability, and even kings are temporary. June 19, 1975, returns in memory not as a date on a page, but as a warning echoing across generations. In the world of organized crime, power is both crown and coffin. Giancana's story closes, but the calculus of fear and authority endures, reminding us that history favors neither the clever nor the ruthless, but the system itself.